how can both of these be true at the same time? May 2025, Operation Sindoor. The whole country was listening to one face, an officer explaining how India had struck back across the border. Colonel Sophia Qureshi, a woman, a soldier and a Muslim. And yet, scroll through any comment section and you'll find this line repeated like it's a fact. Muslims don't even join the army. So friends, how can both of these be true at the same time? Today we are going to do something a little uncomfortable. We are not going to run from the number. We are going to look it straight in the eye, and then I'll show you the part nobody ever forwards. There are two questions here and there are two very different things. First, is the number actually low? And the second, the real one. Why? Because the answer to that second question is the whole game. Let's be honest first. If we go by the figures that exist, then yes, Muslims are underrepresented in the armed forces. I'm not going to paper over that. Around 14% of India is Muslim, but the estimates of the army hover at just 2 to 3%. The Economic and Political Weekly looked at the officer corps and gave that figure one word: abysmal. But, and then, this is where it gets interesting. Hold on a second. Before you accept that 2% as gospel, ask one simple question. Who counted? This is the part that never gets forwarded. The Indian Army does not officially count its soldiers by religion. There is no official consensus of how many Muslims wear the uniform. When these questions come up, a former army chief, General J.J. Singh, refused to even do the head count. He said counting soldiers by religion would violate the secular character of the army itself. And when the Sachar Committee, the government's own commission, asked the armed forces for this data, they were turned down. So think about what that means. Every 2%, every 1% you have ever seen, none of it comes from an official register. They are all estimates. I'm not saying the underrepresentation is fake, I'm saying the precision is fake. That confident exactly 2%, it's a number standing on sand. Okay, so the number is lower than the population share. But the honest question is, why? Why is that so? And the answer has nothing to do whether Muslims want to serve. The answer is history. Let's go to the root. Reason number one, and the biggest by far, partition. Before 1947, in the British Indian Army, Muslims were not some small minority. They were nearly a third of the entire force by some counts, 30 to 36%. Then the country was cut into two, and the army was cut along with it. Roughly 140,000 Muslim soldiers moved to the new Pakistan army. Overnight, that one-third collapsed to about 2%. Friends, this was not Muslims refusing to join India's army. This was an entire army being torn down the middle by the birth of a new country. The hole you are looking at today was punched in 1947. Reason number two goes back even further to 1857, the first war of independence. The revolt shook the British to the core, and the response set India's recruitment pattern for the next 90 years. They invented a theory, the martial races. Put simply, the communities that rebelled were punished, the ones that stayed loyal were rewarded with army jobs. And who led the 1857 revolt? The Muslims of Awadh, Bihar and Bengal. So the British stopped recruiting from exactly those reasons. And here is the proof that this was never about religion. Because of the same pattern, Bengalis, Biharis, Gujaratis and South Indians are also underrepresented. Hindu and Muslims alike. But nobody questions their loyalty. And reason number three, education. Field Marshal Sam Manekshaw himself admitted Muslims weren't proportionally represented. But the reason, in his words, was that they lacked in education. Not that the army didn't want them. The government's own Sachar Committee documented exactly this. Muslims at the very bottom of India's education and employment ladders. When you start the race 10 steps back, you finish it back. This isn't a question of loyalty, it's a development gap that's been ignored for 70 years. So now you know the real reasons: partition, colonial policy, and education. Not one of them is Muslims don't want to fight for India. And if any doubt is still left, let me introduce you to a few people, because despite every single one of those barriers, they showed up anyway. 1947, the country splits. A young Muslim brigadier in the army, Sandhurst trained, gets an offer most men couldn't refuse. Pakistan wants him, and not just wants him, they offer to make him chief of Pakistan Army. His name was Mohammad Usman, and he said no. He chose India. Months later, in Jammu and Kashmir, Usman led the defense of Nowshera. He held the line. Pakistan put a 50,000 rupee bounty on his head. The Lion of Nowshera, that name was earned right there. And here is the detail that should silence every forward. When Usman first took command, some of his own soldiers, scarred by partition, doubted whether a Muslim officer could be loyal or not. So what did he do? He made Jai Hind the official greeting of his entire brigade. He answered the doubt not with words but with his life. On the 3rd of July 1948, just 12 days short of his 36th birthday, an enemy shell killed him. He was the most senior Indian officer to fall in that war. His last words, "I'm dying, but let not the territory we were fighting for fall to the enemy." He was awarded the Veer Chakra. And friends, he is buried in Delhi on the campus of Jamia Millia Islamia. The man who refused to lead Pakistan's army rests in Indian soil. Now, jump to 1965, war with Pakistan. At the Battle of Asal Uttar, Pakistan sends in its pride American Patton tanks, supposedly unstoppable, and a quartermaster Havaldar from a small village in Ghazipur climbs onto a jeep with a recoilless gun and goes hunting. His name was Abdul Hamid. Yeah, Abdul Hamid. He destroyed tank after tank, 7 of them before the 8th took his life. For that, he received the Param Vir Chakra, India's highest military honor, and there is no medal above it. And today, his story is printed in the class 6th NCERT textbooks. Indian school children of every religion learn the name Veer Abdul Hamid. And these two are not exceptions. Air Chief Marshal Idris Latif, a Muslim who rose to command the entire Indian force. At least 8 Muslim officers have risen to Major General. The Jammu and Kashmir Light Infantry, one of the army's toughest regiments, is roughly half Muslim. And then, in 2025, Colonel Sophia Qureshi, the same officer we started this video with. From the very first war this country fought to the latest operation it just ran, there was never been a moment when Muslim soldiers weren't standing on that line. And this isn't just history, it's happening right now. In 2026, the National Security Advisor himself, Ajit Doval, pointed to something he called a silent shift. Over the past decade, a growing number of Muslim youth joining the armed forces and the paramilitary. Not a trickle fading into the past, a rising line heading into the future. I want to be very fair, because that's the point I've given you the structural reasons. Partition, colonialism, and education. But there is a serious counter-argument too. Some scholars like Omar Khalidi argue it's not only history. And they ask a sharp question. If there's nothing to hide, why does the army refuse to even collect the data? On the other side, the army's own position is very simple. It recruits on merit, not religion. And it's not just the army saying this. The Home Ministry, answering in the parliament, has stated it plainly. Religion is not a criterion for recruitment into the paramilitary forces either. Nobody is counted in because of their faith. Nobody is counted out. As its officer put it, the enemy's bullet doesn't ask your religion, so why should we? The truth is probably somewhere in the honest middle. But the one thing you cannot do The thing the evidence simply does not allow is jump from the number is low to the Muslims are disloyal. That leap is the lie. Yeah, that leap is the very lie we listen to. So let's go back to where we started. That what's a forward? Muslims don't even join the army. We found that the number it stands on isn't even officially counted. That the hole was punched by partition. That Bengalis and Gujaratis are underrepresented too. And nobody questions their patriotism. And that from Brigadier Usman to Colonel Qureshi, Muslims have been dying for this country since the day it was born. The real misconception was never the statistic. It was the story people quietly staple on to the statistic. So, friends, one request. The time that message lands in your group with the scary number and that quite little theory, don't just forward it. Pause. Ask who counted. Ask why. That one pause is the difference between spreading a myth and spreading the truth. If this video taught you something, share it with the person who needs to see it the most. And don't forget to subscribe and never stop thinking. I'm Anuj. See you in the next video. Jai Hind.